Okay, we're in the bracha of Rafa'inu, the bracha of healing. We ask God, Rafa'inu Hashem b'nei Rafei, heal us, God, and let us be healed. Hoshi'enu, come to our salvation, and let us be saved. It's interesting. Heal us and allow us to be healed, meaning the healing should be a permanent healing, a full recovery. What's Hoshi'enu? It's a very strong term. It doesn't mean assist us. Hoshi'enu means come to our salvation, to save us. Save us, allow us to be saved. Why is there such a strong term used in regard to recovery of illness? I pointed out in the blessings that precede and follow the Kriya Shema, one of the blessings is Yotzei HaMaoros. It concludes the one God who forms the luminaries, Yotzei HaMaoros. In that paragraph of Yotzei HaMaoros, if you look, there's something very interesting. At the time of creation, there were two things which took place. There was creation and there was formation. The word for creation is bara. He created. Formation is vayitzer. Yitzira means formation. Creation is ex nihilo, which is not possible for the human mind or even for the angel to fathom that something comes from nothing. That's referred to as yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. That's ex nihilo. Yitzira, formation, means the various components or levels of existence, and God coalesces them, and through that coalescing of those various components, something comes about. I'll give you an example. Water is a composition of H2O. That's called Yitzira. Coalescing various things, the end result is something which doesn't reflect what the makeup is. As we say, the sum total is greater than its parts. That's Yitzira. Bria is something from nothing. That's ex nihilo. What would you think healing would be? Healing seems to be, it's like a person that's not well, takes a medication, whether it's an antibiotic or something much more severe than an antibiotic. And that arrests the problem. But you realize you could take all the antibiotic in the world and every level of therapy, but a person doesn't necessarily have a recovery. Recovery is you're in the hands of God. It's only if you follow certain protocols, God allows that protocol should be effective, that you should recover, despite the illness, despite the physical deficiency that exists within yourself. But what is that? So if you take a look in the paragraph of Yotzei HaMaoros, we describe what God does. After we say, Baruch Kvod Hashem Imkamo, blessed is the honor of God from its location, we say, Kihu Lavado Pel Gvuros, he only himself brings about empowerment, or things which are dependent in empowerment. Oseh Chadoshos, he brings about something that didn't pre-exist the moment. Chadoshos, word Chadosh means newness. Bal Milchamos, he's a man, he's a being that wages war. As it says at Yam Suf, at the splitting of the sea, Moshe had envisioned God as a man of war. Because at that moment, he unleashed forces to destroy the Egyptian armies. So that's the way he was depicted in the vision which Moshe Rabbeinu had seen him. Zorei Tzedakos, he sets in motion an energy which ultimately brings about righteousness. Matzmiach Yeshuos. As we said in the second bracha, Umatzmiach Yeshua, he sets certain dynamics which ultimately will allow the salvation to sprout, to come about. Now, this is the interesting one. Borei Refuos. It should say Yotzer Refuos. When we speak about refuah, healing, he creates the ability to be able to recover from illness. He's Borei Refuos. So I asked the question. King Solomon tells us in Koheles, in Chodesh Tachas HaShomesh, there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever exists, existed. What exists now will exist. There's nothing new under the sun. But yet, when it comes to remedies of recovery, the term used is Borei Refuos. The ex nihilo process is put into effect to bring about healing. Why? Everything else from the beginning of creation, it's enough to coalesce what exists to bring about the end result. But when it comes to healing, God has to create healing remedies, healing protocols. Healing means that it should be effective to be able for the person to recover when he takes that protocol, when he ingests that medication. The question is why? Everything else, it's Yotzer Hamoros. He formed the luminaries. That's formation. When it comes to healing, it's Borei. He created. Borei is in the present, not Borei Refuos, Borei Refuos. He creates ongoingly the healing, the remedy that should heal the person. The question is why? Now it's interesting. We find that the Torah speaks about leprosy, that if a person finds a level of discoloration on his skin, an intense level of whiteness, which is only a tag, and it's evaluated by the Kohen and pronounced to be leprosy, he becomes contaminated, he must leave the camp, all the camps. He's classified in that state as a pariah. And the various levels of what are considered leprous lesions. The commentators all explain that the leprosy discussed in the Torah is not the neurological degenerative disease called leprosy. It's not something which is contagious. It's purely a tag, an indicator that the person failed spiritually. In what area? That if a person is a gossiper and he's gone beyond his limits, God says, as your gossip separated between husband and wife and friend and fellow, you will become that person who's going to become the outcast and put outside of all the camps to be all by yourself, that nobody can be associated with you. Because the leper in the state of leprosy becomes a halachic pariah. He must be outside of all the camps, even the camp of Israel. And the Torah says, Bodod Yeshev. He must remain there in solitude, the equivalent of solitary confinement. And that's the measure for measure. Now, this tag, which is pronounced, this intense whiteness by the Kohen as leprosy, what would be if it's right before the festival? He's about to get married, and he notices this level of discoloration on his skin. Do you delay the pronouncement until after the 7 days of celebration, or until after Yom Tov? So based on the verse, the Torah allows the Kohen to put it on hold till after the festival is over, until after he celebrates the 7 days of celebration. Because otherwise, it would infringe and undermine his celebration, his happiness. if we're talking about something which is truly degenerative and contagious, first of all, what do we need to pronounce of the Kohen to determine, and only then must he leave the camps? It's just a reality. The answer is it's not. It's purely a tag. And when he reaches the level of fully saturated with the sin of gossip, of tale-bearing, speaking negatively of other people in a destructive manner, God says this intense white lesion shows up, develops on the body. Then the man is sent out of the community. As your gossip, your bad-mouthing, your slander had actually disrupted people's lives and caused marriages, families, harmony to be disrupted, you're going to be disrupted. You go out of the camp. Now, every ailment, every illness is rooted in spiritual deficiency, whether it's a heart attack, whether it's cancer, whether it's falling and stubbing your toe or breaking a bone. It's all due to spiritual deficiency. And there, when the spiritual deficiency happens and manifests itself, it's a breakdown in the physicality of the person. A heart attack is a malfunction of the heart. Cancer is certain cells are generated which actually destroy the system of the person. So the manifestation is physical incapacitation. When it comes to leprosy, which is for speaking lashon hara, speaking negatively, gossiping about others, it doesn't manifest itself in a physical breakdown. It's purely a tag. When you get that tag, you're tagged, you're asked to leave the community. You become a pariah. Why? Why for this sin is the end result different than any other sin? Any other sin, every sin, manifests itself. If it's going to manifest itself in punishment, it's always in the physicality. The function is no longer the same. Why? So I cited the Gemara in Tainus. The Gemara says at the end of time, there's going to be a tribunal in the forest, in the jungle. And who's going to be put on trial? The snake. The snake, which is the poisonous snake. And they say to the snake, every predator animal, the lion, when it attacks its prey, the force in which it attacks its prey, just when it collides with its prey and knocks the prey to the ground, the prey is usually killed just on impact. It breaks its neck, and the lion devours it while the animal is barely alive. The bear is dores v'ochel. It kills its prey and takes it to its den and eats it in its den. Every species, when it kills for purpose. It has value. There's a benefit. But you, snake, when you bite your victim, what benefit do you have? You bite your victim to die, and then you slither off. Therefore, you are more culpable than anyone. Regarding any other predator, animal, that's part of the profile of an animal for its personal survival, to maintain itself, to satisfy its essence, which is physical. What is the impetus for you to bite the victim? You know what the answer is? It's just an abnormality. It's something which doesn't fit the profile of an animal, of the animal kingdom. This is the accusation and the prosecution of the snake. So the snake responds at the end of time citing a verse from Proverbs. And the person who speaks Lashon Hara speaks destructively about others, whether it's gossip or it's slander, whatever it may be. What benefit does the person have? Does the person have any benefit, physical benefit? It's a pleasure, but it doesn't manifest itself in a physical benefit. So why am I any more culpable than the person who speaks Lashon Hara? That's going to be the snake's response. So now let's understand. Every transgression in the Torah, whether it's stealing, whether, God forbid, having an illicit sexual relationship, whether it's arrogance, it's all emanates from the physicality of the person. When a person sins, why does he sin? Does he sin because of his soul, or because the body and soul is a composite of the human being? Why is man inclined to sin? Because of his soul or because of his body? The physicality of the human being is an animal. It's called Nefesh HaBahamis. We have an animal life source. The animal life source draws us to behave like the animal. The soul, which is the intellect, that is the counterforce. And the question is, which force is going to be the superior force? Is the soul going to temper the physicality of the body and take control and suppress those inclinations and rein in on them? Or is the body going to have the primary control, and it's going to actually suppress the soul and go after the inclination of the body? But this is animal soul struggle, and that's the struggle of life. As a result of that, if a person failed and he allowed the physicality of the body, which is the animal life source, to be the dominant force. So where did the failing take place? The body was utilized, misappropriated. Therefore, when there's punishment, it manifests itself in that physicality, because the physicality, the sin emanated from the physicality of the person. When it comes to Lashon Hara, it's unrelated to the physicality of the person. Because if you look at the animal kingdom, as the tribunal, they held the snake accountable for its unacceptable behavior. You bite your victim, although you have this pleasure, but it doesn't fit the animal profile. Therefore, how does it manifest itself, the punishment? Not in a breakdown of the physicality, but rather just a tag of an intense whiteness, which means you're a pariah and you're outside of the camp, that nobody should be associated with you. That's what it is. So we speak about Rafeinu Hashem b'nei Rafei. So where does the healing emanate itself? From where? Each of us are born into this existence. What are the challenges of life? To make choices. And what is the choice determined by? Who's going to be the dominant figure in a person's life? Is it the soul? Or is it the physicality? Or is the animalistic drives? The ego? Is that what it's about? That's the challenge. But when each person fails, it's unique to his own failing. The consequence of that failing manifests itself its deficiency in the soul. The soul has failed. There's no two souls which are identical. If that is the case, there's not one healing manner to be effective for all, because every soul has its unique profile, and when it sins, the result has to be punishment. Punishment has to fit the profile of that soul. But since this is the first time the soul came into existence, God has to recreate a new remedy for the soul, because the manifestation of that soul failing manifests differently than another soul failing. So every healing remedy is unique to that soul. Therefore, continuously, God has to create new remedies You may take the same antibiotic, but why does the body respond? Because everything's rooted in the soul. If the soul is healed, if the soul is failing, it manifests itself in the body. Because the body was not supposed to be the dominant force. Therefore, the term used is not Yotzer Refuos. He forms healing, but rather Borei Refuos. He creates. It's a creation. It's an ex nihilo. Because everything has to be created for each individual. It's an individualized program. Because each person in his own spiritual profile is unique unto himself. Nobody else is identical to that person. You know, a human being's face is called panim. A panim is a face. But the word panim without the vowels could be read pinim. Pinim means inward. When a person's face reflects the innermost of the person, which is the soul manifests itself in the face, the facial features of a person. We all know, or we don't know, there are no two faces in existence which are identically alike. Every face, although you say identical twins, there's nothing identical. It seems to be identical, but the nuances of difference, like we say, there are no two fingerprints which are alike. Each person's same fingerprints is unique to that person. You have billions of people, but yet there are no two fingerprints which are exactly alike. There are no two faces which are exactly alike. But why? The answer is because what is the face? The panim is the panim. The face reflects the spiritual makeup of the soul. And since each soul is unique unto itself, the way it manifests itself in the panim, it's a different panim. It's a different inside, which is reflected through the panim, through the face, for that reason. As a result of that, it's not Yotzer Refuos. God doesn't form healing, but he creates healing. Because each failing illness is only due to sin. And each sin is a manifestation of the spirituality of that person, that it failed and allowed the physical to get the upper hand and to be in a position of reigning rather than being suppressed for that reason. So now when we speak about to be healed, Hoshienu v'nivoshea. It's not like flicking the switch. You need a very significant amount of salvation. When illness happens, you need salvation. Hoshienu, heal us. But what is that healing? Hoshienu. We need a Yeshua. You need a salvation. And the salvation shouldn't be just superficial, that it just should appear as that, but v'nivoshea. It should be fully effective. But why? Why do you need a Yeshua? Because the illness is rooted in a failing of the soul. And anything that has to do with the soul, it's something which is not quantifiable. Therefore, the result of that failing is borders on the non-quantifiable. That's how severe it is. So therefore, when we speak about illness, it's Hoshienu. We need a salvation, and the salvation shouldn't only be temporary, it should be permanent salvation. Be fully extricated from that setting of what? Of regression physically, not to go back there. So that's Yeshua. It's a question we asked. If the illness, suffering is atonement. Illness is suffering. Because when a person's not well, it puts a limitation on him. The Rambam writes in the laws of the fundament of Deos that a Jew has a Torah obligation to live healthy. It's not just good advice. It plays directly into your function as a person who must meet challenges and make choices and invest your life properly. Why? So the Rambam's words, Maimonides, a healthy mind needs a healthy body. If you do not have a healthy body, you cannot have a healthy mind. Why? Meaning clarity. Because he says if a person's health begins failing, he's preoccupied with pain and incapacitation. That pain and incapacitation and limitation due to his not attending to his physical needs, so it's due to his own level of negligence, irresponsibility. He's not a responsible custodian to take care of his physicality. The reason why he doesn't have the clarity which is necessary to grasp and see things clearly is because he's preoccupied with all the distractions, which is the illness and the pain. Therefore, the Rambam says, since a human being was put on this planet to make choices and meet those challenges, if you have a situation which causes you, interferes, and does not allow you to be the fully responsible person due to a handicap, and the handicap is attributed to the person's own delinquency of not living healthy, therefore he violated the Torah law of not maintaining your health. Those are Rambam's words. So healing is essential in succeeding in the arena of choice. Because to make choice, you have to have an appreciation, a level of internalization, of evaluation of what the challenge may be. So when a person's not well, what does it do? It's an infringement. It's an infringement on our function. Therefore, we say, Rafei Hashem v'nerafei. As much as it's an atonement for the failing, it's the same thing. We're asking to be healed. Now, why should you be healed? If you want to be healed, to be able to serve God better, and the bracha Rafeinu follows, we already had asked for forgiveness. And if you're asking forgiveness and you are forgiving, so then the recovery should begin, because the basis for the illness is firstly and foremost the spiritual failing. And if the only way you're able to recover fully from the physical failing, you have to have pain, you have to have suffering, we're asking God, remove that pain, heal us now. But if you need it, you need that protocol to be fully reinstated. A person needs a certain therapy, and it's painful. And after therapy, he'll be restored to his full function. You go to the doctor because therapy is painful, not to give the therapy. You'd say it's counterintuitive. It seems to be irresponsible to turn away something which will ultimately bring you back to where you should be. And here, God gives us illness to be able to contend and reinstate us and rehabilitate us, because incapacitation is part of the rehabilitation in the spiritual sense. While we're saying to God, please don't give us the remedy, don't give us the medication, don't give us the therapy. I mean, why would one ask for that? And why should God listen? You need it. No, you force the medication on the person. So what should a person's mindset be? What should a person's mindset be? Heal us and let us be healed. Save us and let it be a true salvation. What is it all about? So the way we're explaining it's this way, especially with the Rambam. Why do we say a person has an obligation to maintain his health and live a healthy life? Because pain, suffering, incapacitation is an infringement on clarity that automatically minimizes our ability to make appropriate choices. So if you want to be healed, to be functional, so God, I should be able to serve you better, to have greater clarity, to appreciate the right and the wrong, to be motivated to do more right, and to refrain from doing the wrong. That's why I want to be healed. So that's a whole different issue. It's for the sake of God I want to be healed. I want to be saved for the sake of God. Because we're saying that illness is only a manifestation of the spiritual failing of the person. And that's why it's creation. Because this is unique to that soul, as the face is unique to the soul. It reflects the makeup of the soul. It's the panim. It's the inner part of the person. It's the core of the person. So then, within that context, it's an appropriate request. Or we could say, at a more very simple level, but also as a believing Jew, if you incapacitate me, I have less of a chance of succeeding. Heal me, because there is a midas harachmim, there is an attribute of mercy, which God is willing to hold punishment in abeyance, and he carries those forces that are created due to sin, so they don't have to manifest themselves in physical incapacitation. That's what we're asking. God, have mercy, allow it to manifest itself differently. Put it on the back shelf, put it on the back burner. Let us do tshuva. Let us come to new milestones of understanding to be able to address it differently, rather than compromise us through illness or through injury or other means of spiritual rehabilitation. Whatever it takes, we're supplicating you to bring that about. Because you are our praise. You're the source of our pride. How does this fit the profile? Why should you do it? Because you're the source of our pride. What relevance does this have to the supplication of healing, reinstatement, provide another manner to address the issue? He's still saying, because you are our pride, our praise. Very often, we'll just end with this today, there's a term, the various terminologies for prayer, for tefillah. We find that when Yitzchak and Rivka were barren, the Torah uses a term, Vayetar Yitzchak l'nochach ishto. He prayed in the opposite corner on behalf of his wife. What is the meaning of Vayetar? It doesn't say Vayispalel. He prayed. It says Vayetar. So the Gemara explains the word atar is a pitchfork. What does one do with a pitchfork? The farmer, he takes the ground and he turns it upside down. The hay, he puts the pitchfork in the hay turns it upside down. The yetar is an expression of prayer, of supplication. It's mahapich midas ha'achzoris l'midas harachmim. It overturns the attribute of cruelty to the attribute of mercy. It's a pretty strong term, chas v'sholom. God has an attribute of cruelty. You want to call it midas hadin, the attribute of justice, but it's not cruelty. Justice is what? Within the realm of what? That's equitable. Moshe Atur Sur Toman Polo. The rock is perfect. So how do you refer to an attribute of God as cruelty? The answer is very simple. You know, a person that has cancer, God forbid, doctor says the protocol is very extreme. It's painful. So the person says to the doctor, Doc, why can't I take a few aspirins and eat bananas? Why can't I recover with that? Why is that enough? That seems to be pretty harsh. The doctor says it because if you understand the nature of this illness, the only way we can arrest and destroy those cancer cells, we have to take these extreme measures. And it's synonymous with pain, otherwise it doesn't work. So what the ignorant patient, the novice, the person has no understanding of nature of that illness, he says, Doc, it seems to be too much. I'm a pretty smart person. It seems to be too extreme. You only see it as extreme because you don't understand the nature of the illness. When God forbid, demonstrates the attribute of justice, how does mankind see it? God, I think that's too much. That's cruelty, God forbid. So when God allows the Midas Hadin, the attribute of justice, to be in place, it's really a Chil Hashem. Because the takeaway of humanity is God is not just. God is not merciful. It seems to be it's beyond. Did he have to take 6 million? Did he have to take the person when he was 35 years old and left a widow and children and orphans? Did he have to? If you'd understand how serious or whatever the basis for that decision was, you'll understand it's a very equitable decision. It's because we don't understand, we say, it seems to be with a great level of insensitivity, God forbid. So it's perceived, it's processed as cruelty. It's not cruelty. So that expression of tefillah, vayetar, overturns like a pitchfork, the midas hadin, it really means the attribute of justice, that attribute of mercy. Rufeinu Hashem v'nei rufeinu. Kisel seinoto. Because you are a pride and praise. If God forbid, if we should see you in that negative light ever, chas v'shalom, it infringes on our perception of the reality of who you are. Heal us, that we should always see you in the best light. Because kisil seinoto. You are a pride and praise. And we sing your praises, we want to continue singing your praises. But unfortunately, if you allow us to have pain and suffering and illness, which we cannot process, we're not going to see you correctly. And if we're not going to see you correctly, it's going to interfere with our praising you. Because you are Sila Seder, you are the source of all praise, therefore remove it, that there should not be infringement of our perception of you, and we should always continue to praise you.